Greetings, good evening. Sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. This evening, we are going to explore cult parallels. Right? What are some parallels between the different cults? Sometimes we might not be able to see a lot of the details when we're very connected to the cult, or perhaps if it's within our own community or if it's very close to us. Sometimes we can get perhaps a more objective view from outside of ourselves, or even looking into others' experiences. Sometimes we can see so clearly when it's outside of us over there, in contrast to when we are in it or when our loved ones are experiencing a cult, or if it's within our community, we may be much more emotional and opinionated or swayed or biased. So today, we're going to take a look and see if we can see some of the parallels within the cults. So, as I have explored and researched cults, I have been blown away by just how distinct and similar the patterns are. Most of the patterns are pretty much spot on similar. So, today we're going to take a look into a cult, and you can determine for yourself if you see any parallels, especially when we consider the amount of cult activity that's going on right about now. I have mentioned before, this channel is not an entertainment channel. For years now, there have been playlists on this channel, numerous playlists that I think maybe have gone right underneath people's nose. They haven't noticed, though I knew it was just a matter of time before a lot of the cult activity came to the surface. So I invite you to put your thinking caps on, your discernment caps on. Perhaps press pause on who your favorite folks are and see if you can spot the distinct patterns of the cult. All right, here we go.
In this cult, believing it to be a meditation and yoga center back in 2009. And at the time, I was living in Vancouver and would regularly see the front that they had for the group on one of the main roads. And it sounded fairly innocuous. It was called Life Bliss Meditation Academy. And what they did was, bi-weekly free meditation evenings, followed by discourses. And so I happened to pop in one evening because they had a sign out front that said, "Don't miss it." And I thought that means now must be a good time to join this meditation. And
Now, keep in mind, folks are not necessarily wrong for seeking, right? Most folks are seeking some kind of release from stress, some kind of relaxation. Many people are seeking so called like minded individuals. And distinction, many of us don't have a vetting process. If it's one thing that would be useful for all folks to carry away from these experiences, is having a vetting process for everyone, anyone you're giving access to your body, your pocketbook, your psyche.
from the beginning, had I known what kind of red flags to look out for, like love bombing or groupthink or people who don't really seem to be in control of their own decision-making process.
Now, we're stopping early on in this process straight away, because although we can look outside and see another, surface a different group, it can actually be observed that a lot of the spaces on the internet that started out initially looking into cults and wanting to report on a popular cult um, coming out of the African American community and traveling throughout Central America, what can be seen now is that some of the platforms have taken on some of the very patterns that this woman just noted straight out the gate. Groupthink, love bombing, when you initially come into contact with some of these, either the narcissistic personality, a cult group, if it's a cult, whoever's bringing you in, will love bomb you, give you so many compliments and so much affirmation and so much praise and so much "I love you," even though you haven't really known these people. And in addition, a pattern that has presented itself is the groupthink. When you go onto different platforms, if you don't agree with all the talking points, or if you don't submit to whoever the platform host is, it can be seen now bullying and group bullying as folks hold on to the personality of whoever the personality of the platform is, the way folks follow and go into different people's platforms and harass if people have a different perspective or experience. It's become very mob-like and very cult-like. So they are patterns, and it's not exclusive to any one group.
I would have known that this was something to avoid. But back in 2009, there wasn't really much of a public discourse going on about cults. We didn't have things like Scientology and the Aftermath from Leah Remini.
So note she said there wasn't much of a public discourse about cults. Now there is. I know initially when I had an experience, when I initially came out and spoke out, because especially when we consider as an Afro community, we don't, it seems like we don't have that much going on. So when we have a public representative or when something seems positive, we will hold on to it and often suspend our vetting process because we feel such a sense of pride. But there wasn't much of a public discourse. It has been slow. It has been a slow process for more people, more flat platforms to start to expose the pattern of cults within our community.
Or The Vow about NXIVM. And so things that now I think would stand out as obvious red flags didn't really register as problematic. So right from the very first meditation evening, they were encouraging me to come back every week and to watch the discourses of the cult leader on YouTube. And, everyone seemed like they really believed in it. So I felt like the group kind of.
So again, everyone seemed like they really believe. So it is that group think, that pressure, and just a tendency we have as human beings to want to fit in. So, looking for meditation, relaxation, something positive, she got love bombed and pulled into this group think. And everyone seemed like they believed.
Kind of gave credibility to the movement.
Now, what she said is key. So many people seeming to believe, in particular, when you have women or people that seem like they're professional or they seem to have a position in society, when you see all these people seeming to go along with the cult leader, it actually gives them credibility.
And so that was the history. And of course, also back then, if you Googled the name of the leader, which is Nityananda, nothing bad came up about him.
Now, I researched the cult that I experienced, and initially I asked around. I had visited Central America to where they live. I couldn't find anything negative on them on the internet. I also came out of the cult, and I got to speak to some of the parents of other adult members of their children. They had adult children inside of the cult. They said they looked up and they couldn't find anything negative on them on the internet. Just because you haven't found anything negative, that doesn't mean that they have credibility. That doesn't, it's a really challenging position to be in.
There weren't any scandals. There weren't any negative press reports. And of course, that's completely different now because, as you mentioned, he's an absconded, accused of rape. He's fled India to avoid that trial. And multiple victims have come forward. But it seems like we're kind of beating against a brick wall to try to get something done to stop him.
It seems extraordinary.
Any patterns there? Right? They couldn't find anything on the guy, this particular cult leader initially. And then when more things started to come out, she said it was like beating your head up against a brick wall. Now, there's a popular cult leader who is now in prison. I'm not going to mention the person's name. They're popular. So many people eventually, and it was a long time to report on this person for them finally to be arrested, in spite of them having so much blatant evidence online. It seemed, and even the person said themselves that, basically no one would hold them in prison, which was pretty suspicious in and of itself.
That he's gotten away with it for now, and it's really frustrating as well. What were the kinds of things then? So tell me, as you say, we didn't have as much awareness back then. I mean, how far in did you get, and when did you start to become suspicious?
I got in pretty much to the top of the organization as far as the public face is concerned. So between 2009 to about 2015, I would come and go from India. I paid for the programs. I continued to live my life in Canada while also being a full believer in this fake guru. But in 2015, he convinced me to move to India permanently and to take the vow of what they call sannyas, which is like a monastic Hindu vow.
Mm.
So in 2015, I broke my lease, left my business behind, took the kavi, which is like the saffron robe of a Hindu nun. And at first, it seemed kind of like a dream place to live. There was a morning routine that
Key. She said at first it seemed like such a dream place to live. Left her job, or no, her business rather, left her business. I had good business in the States before I traveled over to experience this cult. And also keep in mind, she had been communicating with the person, this cult leader, for a while, several years. So it's a drip. Usually the cult leader is communicating with people online that they keep, in their network, to slowly drip them in and to transition them in. Distinct patterns.
involved yoga and meditation, and everyone there had a different department that they would work in. And I can see now that he created kind of like a Potemkin village for newcomers where everything looked great on the surface. And it's only once he understood somebody was fully committed that
Bingo, 1000%. Only when you have demonstrated that you have been broken or AKA fully committed do get you get pulled into deeper and deeper levels of the cult as you've demonstrated that you can be trusted and as you are more fully indoctrinated.
honeymoon phase ended and the abuse would begin.
The honeymoon phase ends and the abuse begins. Distinct patterns.
So the abuse in the form of sleep deprivation at first, setting up unrealistic expectations for our productivity so that we constantly felt like we were underachieving and we had to prove ourselves.
Now, again, this is a distinct pattern. I witnessed public shaming, and something she said that's very key. You always felt like you were underachieving. I didn't know what gaslighting was, but now that I know what it was, the pattern is, you just experienced gaslighting all day long from all the cult leaders, all of the cult members, which is mostly his family. But in particular, you'll be brought into these meetings. You were constantly being gaslit and being made to feel a way about your family, like your previous achievements didn't mean anything. Some of the family members of the cults, they were told their degrees and things they had accomplished before coming to the cult meant nothing.
So as far as how far did I go in the organization, he gave me the assignment to become the Western face of his movement. So every day I had to do 2-hour-long live TV shows that were call-in questions about meditation and yoga and Hinduism.
So there are people in the cult that I was assigned, specific people. Everybody was given jobs or a department. And the public presentation was given to one person in particular, the one that understood, that was his feminine voice, as he called her, the so-called Oshami. And in a cult, people feel proud to be given a position like a colonel or a sergeant, if you will, the equivalent.
No script, no planning. It had to be completely spontaneously done on camera. I had to introduce him on stage before every program. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, he was yelling at me and calling me worthless and calling me stupid and telling me that I was failing him.
I watched a cult leader that I experienced basically emasculate different men in front of the whole community. And sometimes I'm like, wow, why is he talking like that to grown men? Just horrible.
As a disciple, because I hadn't brought enough people as new recruits. And so it was kind of a weird juxtaposition of being expected to hold down the stage show while also having kind of self-esteem destroyed. And this is just my example. Like everyone who was there had a
bingo. I would definitely say between the love bombing there was a lot of love bombing where this person was almost like this cult leader was like a father figure. But in the same sense, the way he would speak to people and the language that he would use, he'd break these men. I'd watch him break men down. You know, he could break folks down, and sometimes you just look to the side and see grown women just crying off to the side. So I would definitely say he broke his goal was to break people's self-esteem down, though I'm sure he would say otherwise.
A similar um a similar experience of at first being praised for whatever contribution they're making to the group, and then later being shut down for supposedly not doing enough.
Bingo. So praise one moment, and the next moment it never seemed like you could do enough. Gaslighting.
That went on until about 2018. And, the big moment, I guess the straw that broke the camel back for me was when two of the kids who were in his school confided in me that they were getting beaten and that they didn't know who to talk to about that. Yeah. He had a residential school. He would swindle parents by claiming if they put their kids into a regular school in the West, even if it's a private school, even if it's really highly accredited, the most their child can expect to become is a CEO or a successful person in entertainment or politics. But that if they put their child in his school, their child will develop superpowers. Why just
Now, so interesting the way this man, and everyone's proud of their children, the way he would frame his own children, like he went the extra mile to give praise to his children, which were in the community in their so-called royal hall. But the interesting thing was everyone else that was like, on audition to get fully into the cult was like left out. And he was very strategic about who was publicly shamed and who was love bombed and given praise, and then it was given and then it was taken away.
just be a CEO if their child can be a god incarnate?
This man even said that some of his children, he alluded to them having specific types of powers, and that was the reason why their presentation or their particular, how can you say, their physical temple was differently abled. We'll put it that way.
So he was conning parents into giving him the absolute trust for the care of their children by making these grandiose promises. One of the kids who was beaten, her parents were promised that she would become the next prime minister of India if she stayed in his gurukuls. And so, yeah, parents were willing to turn a blind eye to the abuse because of their ambition to see their children
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Parents were willing to turn a blind eye due to their ambition to see their child in a certain position. The ambition for their child. I watched this man tell some parents, your child is going to be like what do you call him? A public leader. What's the word? Like, I can't think of the word. But basically, your child is going to be famous. So people, would turn a blind eye due to their ambition for their child, if they felt like they couldn't handle their child, if their child had issues. I had family members in there, so I can totally relate. And after the honeymoon phase was over, a lot was revealed.
kind of raised to a prominent position within his cult.
That's awful. A lot of the so now
Right, and the ambition to see that their child went to a prominent position, a title position or a sought after position, even though it's a little small group in the cult. So he gaslit the parents to make them feel so proud that your child is going to be an activist. Meanwhile, he was talking about all these parents like trash when they would leave, if he allowed them in.
now I gather you've seen things like The Vow and Scientology in the aftermath. Are these, sleep deprivation, for example, are these all things that you think are common in this cult, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce? And do you think that he had even studied those cults, perhaps?
Yes, he absolutely studied Scientology, because when he first started his Western mission into
Bingo. And as I've said before, all the cults, especially the older ones, I dealt with the older G. They study the cults before them. They study each other.
2006. He gave copies of the book Dianetics to all of the initial leaders of his organization.
No way.
And yeah, one of the first podcasters to interview me after I went public was the late Ron Miscavige. He's David Miscavige's father. And the day after he released part 1 of our interview, Nityananda gave a public discourse where he said anybody who attacks Scientology is attacking consciousness. He claims L. Ron Hubbard was the incarnation of an ancient rishi, which is like an enlightened sage. So yeah, he was definitely a big fan of Hubbard. I don't know that he would have learned anything from Keith Raniere just because they were committing their abuse simultaneously. But I'm sure he would be an apologist for what Raniere did because they're so similar. But yeah, he was a big fan of any man who abused power. Like I was listening to your last.
Now, pattern. She said this cult leader was a big fan of anybody who abused power. Can you look on the internet today and see any of these patterns? And do you see that playing out anywhere? A big fan of anyone who abused power. This is a phenomenon and a pattern that can be seen very clearly on the internet.
Yes. And found that conversation fascinating and inspiring because it's true, whistleblowers do get attacked.
Whistleblowers get attacked.
And I think the biggest thing all of these cult leaders learned from the Scientology model is this concept of fair game, that if somebody leaves and speaks out, do whatever you have to do to destroy them, but shut them up. And
they would rather you not come forward and speak your experience.
And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway Nityananda took from Hubbard. So in the early days, like back in 2010, there was a video leaked to the Indian media of this fraudulent cult leader in bed with a fairly famous South Indian actress. And up until that time, he had claimed to be celibate. So it was a huge scandal in India. And what he immediately did was abuse litigation to try to attack anybody who was involved with leaking that video. So the man who had initially approached Sun TV, which was the Indian news channel, with the footage, was hit with retaliatory fake rape cases by multiple women within the organization. They sued Sun TV. When a rape victim finally came forward against Nityananda, she was sued in 10 different civil cases within the US, all to be heard on the same day. So she lost by default because she didn't have the legal acumen to know how to represent herself or to have the cases stayed, since she couldn't physically be in 10 places at once. Her name is Arti.
So look how strategic that is. The cult leader I dealt with, one of his wives, and they're not all married to him legally, by the way, but one of his mates is a lawyer, one is a research person, librarian, one is a physical therapist / dancer. So, he's very strategic in who he has in his fold. Most of his community is his wives and his children, and several of the other young people that he married in, and another one young that he married into himself, by the way.
Rao, and I think she's the biggest hero of this story because she really put her neck on the line back when the cult still had power. So I felt kind of in a bad position when these kids told me they were getting beaten, because I know the history this cult has is that whenever somebody comes forward and talks about their abuse, that person will be destroyed. And they did try to get somebody to take a false rape case against me. I've been falsely accused of rape by 3 of the members of this cult. They've made YouTube videos describing in horrific detail things that obviously I didn't do, but that they claim I did. They've accused me of starting my own cult and saying, the reason Sarah Landry knows so much about mind control is that she brainwashes people. They accused me of
Now, mind you, I have seen this woman Now, speaking, I've seen her online before because she used to have locks. So the particular cult that they're speaking of now, um, if you were put in hashtag Jata locks, a lot of these people would come up. So she was one of the most devout followers. So when she came out initially, she didn't speak up, and now she's sharing why she didn't speak up in that first year. Usually, people are maybe fearful for their physical health, or if she's already aware of the pattern of what happens to people that speak out. I know I, for one, there were different people that came and left, and I was like, what happened to all the people? How come? I always wonder why nobody spoke out.
Conspiring with Ron Miscavige to try to stop the world from getting enlightened because he's trying to take down Scientology and I'm trying to take down this fringe branch that claims to be Hindu. So it's really tough. You know, I feel for all the whistleblowers across the board, whether it's political or in the entertainment industry or in a cult, because it's like we have to make the decision to move on with our lives quietly, which enables the abuse to continue, or to speak out against the abuse and risk.
Bingo. Great decision, because many people may often from the outside looking at these little screens, how come people don't come out and say something? Well, quite often you've totally depleted your resources. The cults usually like to make you dependent on them for all of your resources, even if you have come in initially with resources. They want you dependent on them. And many people cut their ties and lose the support of their families.
A lifetime of litigation nightmare and character assassination. But obviously, for me, kids getting beaten makes it a no-brainer.
Did you ever fear for your life once you left?
Big time, yeah. About a week after I went public, Nityananda introduced something that he called Apat Sanya. And in Sanskrit, the word Apat means emergency. And so he created a new branch of his monastic group that was charged with the task to destroy me by any means necessary. And he said, if somebody is attacking your guru, that person is attacking your possibility for enlightenment, which is the purpose of life itself. And that if you have to kill in order to preserve the capacity for humanity to reach enlightenment, it's justified. And
now, again, this was one of the most devoted members of this cult. So it gives some insight into why she didn't speak up the first year when she left. She was one of the most devoted, was the face of, of his, for all of his Western videos. And she just shared she would have to go live for 2 hours a day making videos.
So around the world, they were posting screenshots every day, mainly on Facebook, which is where Nityananda does the majority of his recruiting, of people, married people, single people, young people, old people, putting on orange clothing, taking selfies, declaring themselves to be Apat sannyasis of Nityananda. And I got death threats. I went to my local police and they told me, if it's happening on Facebook, stay off of Facebook. They cautioned me not to go to India. So at that time, I was planning to, I did file police reports with the Indian police about the child abuse. They ignored my complaints and told me that I have to appear in person at the police station in order for them to file it as an FIR. But again, local police had told me don't go to India. They felt that would be a trap. So similarly, I have friends who exposed NXIVM and they've told me he was trying to lure them to Mexico. Like Mexican reporters were inviting them to come to Mexico to give interviews. They believe that would have been a setup. So
it's really scary. How does it feel to have that hanging over your head? And also,
again, this is insight on why people sometimes don't immediately come out to speak. Just one scenario.
So, Sarah, when you were in the cult and quite high up, would you have been somebody that, as a true believer who might have wanted to hurt others who left?
I would never have wanted to hurt anybody physically, but I would have definitely participated in the disinformation or the character attack against people who left, not believing that I'm spreading a lie, but because we were told these people are lying about Swamiji, which is what they called Nityananda. So, for example, Arti Rao, his first public rape victim, we were told that she lusted after him, but he's a celibate sannyasi and that's inappropriate. And because she felt rejected, she made up this story accusing him of rape because she wanted to believe that she was sexually attractive to him. And so we were told she abused him, she's lying about him, she's trying to destroy his reputation. But this is the real truth about her. And then we were given fake medical reports that stated that she had multiple STDs. And we were told if she had actually been raped by Nityananda, he would have contracted these same STDs, but here's his clean bill of health. Spread this all over social media. So we were actively encouraged. And not only encouraged, we were forced. They would sometimes gather all of us in the courtyard of his building. And we had to prove that we had shared these fake stories about Arti Rao to 40 different Facebook.
Again, once you're living inside the cult, there's a lot that's orchestrated. There's so much that's orchestrated people cannot see with these little screens, especially from another country.
Groups or Facebook pages before they would let us leave and continue with our dates. So I did participate in a lot of the attacks against previous whistleblowers. And, this is part of what made it hard for me to go public was that I knew how orchestrated their retaliation was going to be. From having lived it on both sides, I knew they're not going to just accept the fact that I'm speaking out. But yeah, it feels necessary. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask about the actual message of the cult. Of often ex-Scientologists I speak to or former NXIVM members will say that there are sort of grains of goodness in them, which is what got them into the cults in the first place. So, was that what was keeping you there, and what kinds of things were they?
Yeah, absolutely. So very similarly to
now this is key because I found that often our own community, in such a desperate grasp to prove what was positive about it, would often and still overlooks the character and what is actually happening, in a desperation to hold on to living foods or eating healthy or this father figure, that a blind eye will be turned to what people are expressing about their experience in the cult. You will be dismissed, ridiculed, bullied, because what the cult represents for people is like hope. It's almost like a symbol of hope, red, black, and green, and people that seem to have behavior. Meanwhile, these are people that folks have not vetted and do not know personally.
The way Scientology was built up. This cult was built up claiming that a certain number of people, we were told initially 100,000, later that became 10 million, that if 10 million people are initiated into the lifestyle of living enlightenment, the world is going to advance into a new era of peace. And that if we want to see things like war and famine and the exploitation of minorities, and in my case, I've always been an animal rights activist. He told me specifically, if you bring followers to me, I'll make sure that animal agriculture is put to an end. And so that was the carrot he dangled to make me continue to.
And make no mistake, a carrot is dangled in front of everyone's face, male and female. The cult leader knows how to speak to the insecurities and the desires. If that's, you have a desire to be loved, they're going to offer you a mate. If you have a desire, a big one, vanity, is to lose weight, or just a desire for health, not even necessarily just vanity. The promise of a mate, or that you'll lose weight, or you'll have clear skin, or you can get fit, or you can be on the basketball team, or you'll be allowed to sing songs, even though all the songs that were sang were out of tune.
Believe that what I was doing was something good for the world.
And people initially really do feel like they're doing something positive. But what folks had not banked on, and probably likely have not banked on, was the other side of this person's character, who they don't know and they have not vetted. It doesn't even occur to them. They're so deep in it to cross-reference. There's no way to cross-reference this person's character with their peers, or to go deeper with your cross-reference, to get a perspective on this person from different angles once you're inside. If you're asking the cult leader for information about himself, that's a conflict of interest. You're going to get a bias. You're going to get biased answers.
And
Yeah,
of
that's
course,
very Jonestown-y.
yes, there are unbelievable parallels between Jonestown that I've
Oh, go on.
noticed. Well, Jim Jones, towards the end, he started restricting the diets of his followers further and further. Like, one day they're allowed to eat carrots. The next day he says he's discovered some new biblical reference that carrots are evil. Nityananda did the same thing. So initially, everyone had to follow what's called a sattvic vegetarian diet, which is vegetarian with no garlic, no onions, no mushrooms, no green chili.
And although I enjoy a lifestyle of whole, fresh living, basically what people call raw food, I can definitely tell you that food is one of the ways, the mechanisms of control within the cult.
But he started limiting the foods people are allowed to eat. So now no food that's not genetically originating from India can be eaten by his followers. So, for example, if corn and wheat flour and canola are not found in the ancient Hindu scriptures, they're not allowed to eat it. So people have an unbelievably restricted diet, mainly white rice and sambar, which is like a runny soup. He's also actively encouraged his devotees to be okay with the concept of a mass suicide. And I think this is the most frightening thing he's doing. When he was originally arrested in 2010, he brought a group of his close disciples together once he was released and berated them because he claims if this had happened to a Buddhist leader, for example, Tibetan Buddhist leaders, when the Tibetans were kind of pushed out of their autonomy, they had certain monks self-immolate in protest. And he yelled at his inner circle and said, if even one of you had lit yourself on fire outside of my prison cell, they would have let me go immediately. Why didn't you do that? And so he punished them, made them do a certain form of tapas, which is making a ring-shaped circle in the ground outside of his temple lit on fire. They had to sit within these rings of fire for hours every day as a penance for not killing themselves for his freedom.
Now, people watching from online, you have no idea of the tapas or the penance or the hazing. There's a constant hazing within the group. And you got to make it through these different hazings to get closer to the inner circle. The inner circle might be that you can sit a little bit closer to the royal family as you're eating your meal or get whatever little privileges. So you're kept in isolation. So much is taken from you that you're so desperate for other human contact.
There was a group, a group session that he had. He invited about 80 of us back to his ashram once he was released from prison. And there were rumors that he was going to be arrested again for the Aarti Rao rape case. And they made us all sign in blood, like cut our fingers and then sign in blood a document stating that if he was arrested, we would go on a starvation diet outside of his cell until he's released or until we all die. And
Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, I interrupted you.
No, don't be sorry, but it is crazy. And then most recently in 2018, one of the things that was kind of building up to my exit from the cult before the kids told me about the beatings was that he told all of us in a live, public discourse that if your guru is being insulted, it's better to kill yourself than to listen to those insults, because if you listen to the insults, you are participating in the abuse of the master.
So have any of you noticed any of these patterns in terms of how cult members, at least the one you've seen online, there's a lot you don't see online, But in terms of the ways they're told, if I'm messed with, y'all should do this and y'all should do that. Now, again, I'll say the older G's, the older cult leaders who've been out here for a while, some are in jail. They watch each other, learn from each other. They're taking note. So they're actually more savvy than the newer cult leaders on the block.
So there are people who follow him who are so frightened of listening to somebody like me or anybody who speaks out against him that they would rather end their life than engage in a discourse, an open conversation about his legitimacy. And that's what really scares me. People in India, especially, he's become a meme because a lot of the things he says are just ridiculous. Like he claims he can make cows and monkeys speak Tamil and speak Sanskrit. And that goes viral because it's so absurd. But I feel like he's hiding behind the...
All right, so we're taking a dive into, or an exploration into cults and patterns. And perhaps it can be helpful to look at cults, perhaps in other cultures, because it's when things are close to home, it's so emotionally charged, we can have a tendency to be more biased. So perhaps it can be, it can help us to have more clear, sharper discernment when we're looking at somebody else, so we can see the patterns. It can help us perhaps to see what's going on in our own community a little more clearly.
Absurdity, and there's an actual danger and an actual threat. Like kids have already been beat, men, women, and children have already been raped by him. He's already proven himself to be, a fraud, a con artist. He's made away with millions of dollars from people. And I just think it's crazy. We can't really get any action.
They will definitely find ways to siphon your money off. All very, very slick. Again, if you've been watching any of these popular cults, by now, so much more of this information is out there for all to see. Though it's interesting, if you look in the comments, people are still flocking to these. So it is apparent that folks that are new coming online, they haven't taken the time to research people who they like their gift of gab or their body or whatever, or following the crowd. People haven't done their research. So there will always be people that folks are connecting on. We have similar trauma, or I was in jail too, or we come from the same part of the Bronx or Queens. He's constantly striving to connect with people and say, oh, we the same. We're the same.
Taken to stop him. Like there's a blue corner notice issued by Interpol. Why not a red corner notice? I feel like the scale of his crimes are so far beyond the actual charges that have been brought against him. But I feel like there has to be something to escalate the case, which is why I'm.
And is he still? Oh, go on.
Oh no, just that I'm grateful for this interview and any chance to speak about it, because one thing I learned from NXIVM is that FBI didn't do anything to stop Keith Raniere until there was a public outcry.
See any patterns here?
So I'm hoping to generate something like that against Nityananda.
Yeah, well, I hope that people watching this will feel that way as well and are sufficiently outraged, because I feel outraged, angry just hearing it. Is he still at large then with, big cults of followers? Because it does start to sound very Jonestown, very Heaven's Gate. He's obviously mentioning ending one's life more and more. It's a really scary case. And I, like you are, I'm afraid, I think that it'll be, by the time we've done anything about it, it'll be too late, I guess.
See any patterns?
Yeah, absolutely. He is still free. Nobody knows where he is in the world. And this is part of the reason for the Interpol Blue Corner notice, is that
Right, for all the folks thinking they're going to the tropics. Usually, unless you're driving through, somehow you flim-flam pay somebody off to get through. You'll have to register. If you stay past your travel visa, you have to register with Interpol. Basically, you have to demonstrate that you don't have a criminal record, or you have to go. Right? So now this other gentleman is on Interpol.
Fled India without a valid passport. His passport was expired. He is wanted in court on a non-bailable warrant for a rape case, but somehow he was able to leave the country of India. He has been in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. And we have watched different cult leaders. You're wondering, how are they able to get in this country, that country, for the things they were kicked out for? How is it possible? They went from one country to another country to another country.
From there, he moved to Ecuador. From Ecuador, he moved to Haiti. And since Haiti, nobody knows where he is physically. That was
right. So if you go into an underdeveloped or a quote unquote poor country, yeah, your money's going to talk. If this cat was charging, if he made at least 13 million off of a course, if he's charging 1,000, whatever, how many people, 100,000, whatever, $13,000, was it 13,000 or more per course for one course?
Was his last reported resident. So he has a lot of very powerful, very wealthy devotees, mainly American. And these people are pulling all kinds of strings to get him free. And not only that, just this morning, I had a Google alert notification that the UN is recognizing him as a persecuted minority leader because
bingo. Did you catch that? So when you're dealing with the older G's, they're savvy and they well connected. You can have, I'll be honest, you can have some folks, that might be in office, a little position in government, whatever, got some kind of government job, or they could have erectile dysfunction. They could have cancer. If he can get in anybody with a job, it could be the chief of police. When these people, they're very savvy and get into your ear and they speak to your insecurities or your fears, they get a hookup. This is how many cults were able to start to take over whole towns or whole areas. Nothing to be taken for granted.
they're petitioning the UN. Yeah.
And let's be clear, they look to get credibility that way. Jim Jones used basketball to recruit a lot of the young men, much like the cult leader that I experienced.
Oh, I'm too angry now. Sarah, where can people go and hear more about this or find? Are you speaking out about it? Do you have a channel and stuff?
All right, so let's continue on with our exploration into the patterns of these cults. Let's continue to look at the patterns.
Hybrid work is better with Lucid, the visual collaboration suite.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that?
Okay, let's skip the ads.
Many people asked me, Swamiji, why did you leave?
Now, this is the same quote-unquote gentleman cult leader that the previous woman was speaking about. And I remember her because of her locks, and his cult, usually everybody's rocking locks. So he gets a lot of young people in there and gets folks to, give up their money because they want to, it's exciting. They want to be a guru.
Such a huge empire you built.
Some say he has fled to a South American country. He has so much money.
Law enforcement really needs to take a much more serious look at these isolated groups.
We are going to be safe forever. That is the good news I have for all my disciples.
There are the polymaths, and then there's Paramahamsa Nityananda. That is, at least if you take the word of the self-proclaimed God-man himself. Healing the blind, stopping the sun from coming up, making farmyard animals speak in perfect Sanskrit. The 44-year-old really can do it all. To his followers, Nityananda is a divine being, but to his many detractors, he's a con man and a cult leader who has somehow escaped justice despite being wanted by Interpol on rape and kidnapping charges.
Former member of Nityananda's cult had accused him of raping her.
Where a father is fighting for justice, fighting for his two daughters whom he claims has been kidnapped and illegally confined.
He could have very well have fled the country, ensuring that he once again escapes from the law.
In 2019, he fled his native India despite lacking valid travel papers. Where does a guru on the run settle down in the early 21st century? Simple. He establishes his own state.
Kailasa is the space where
That's how much money this cat was raking in. Now, again, off of our insecurities, people seeking unresolved trauma. It's not exclusive to any one group of people. He's got lots of Indian folks over there, lots of vanilla folks over there. He's got chocolate folks over there with locks wanting to be vegetarian, seeking some kind of peace.
human beings literally become divine beings.
Though no one is exactly sure of Kailasa's coordinates or even its existence, rumor has it that it lies off the coast of Ecuador and even has its own flag, currency, and COVID policy.
It is not just a temple or a monastery or a adinam, not even a nation. It's enlightenment ecosystem.
Welcome to the business of crime. In this episode, we're looking at the rich tradition of cults buying up land across the world.
What did they say? What did you say? The rich tradition of cults buying up land across the world. Now, some of these broke down cults, they're abusing women and young men, but let $1 million, so the new Jack cults, over $1 million just go through their fingers, just totally wasted resources from lots of folks online supporting what they thought initially was positive. Seeing somebody chocolate, eat fruits and vegetables in one community, we grasp onto those things and suspend the vetting process.
Occasional successes and the many often bizarre, dangerous, and sometimes fatal failures. It makes a lot of sense for any ambitious cult, whatever its belief system. You've got charismatic leadership and a growing number of devoted followers. The next logical step is finding.
Now, many people online may not consider themselves as followers. Right? We've had different popular channels that started out reporting on cults, and then folks went into created their own channels, and many of them spun off and turned into something totally different. But we can see the pattern of like a mob-like mentality really rallying behind these online personalities who has shown that you just don't know. And that's a pattern.
Finding somewhere of your own to settle down and plan a new dawn society or whatever else is on the table.
The idea being to isolate themselves.
Now, Rick Alan Ross is a very popular researcher on cults and a deprogrammer of people that have been in cults.
Not be accountable to the authorities, child protective services, police.
This is where they live, among the stables, barns, and phony buildings of an old rundown movie location 20 miles from Los Angeles.
From the Manson family's Spahn Ranch out in the Californian hills to Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh's vast Oregon ranch in the early 1980s, it's a common enough story, offering the chance to live apart from mainstream society and away from any prying eyes.
In many of these isolated compounds, there are crimes being routinely committed.
It isn't as simple as it used to be. In May 2019, authorities in northern Minnesota called a temporary halt to construction on land linked to Seth Jeffs, a high-ranking figure in the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
This is the hidden world of the FLDS, one of the largest polygamous groups in the United States.
The plan involved building a 5,760 square foot structure to house some of the controversial group's adherents. Unlike mainstream Mormons, the thousands-strong sect still practice polygamy as a matter of course.
The huge compound where Jeffs and his so-called sister wives lived, all 79 of them.
Seth Jeffs is...
Did you catch that? How many wives? Living in what kind of a space? Okay. Pattern.
Brother is considered by followers to be a prophet sent from God. He is also serving a life sentence for assaulting 2 of his child brides.
He was one of the most wanted men by the FBI for a period of time when he was a fugitive. So by controlling all this real estate and all these different locations, Warren Jeffs maintained his power.
There are others who have had more success.
But yet, the left says, you're the dangerous ones, you're the Nazis, you're the white supremacists, and the half of you are not.
There are cults aplenty of different ages. No one is left out.
90% of you are not white.
The Rod of Iron Ministries is the latest offering from Pastor Hyung Jin Sean Moon, son.
This is the son of the Moonies. I know someone personally whose parent was in the Moonies.
Of the infamous Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who started the hyper-conservative Christian ministry in South Korea before taking.
This was the one that was having all of these folks, these strangers, marry each other in New York City.
It to the US in the 70s.
This is what most people remember. The mass weddings, the Moonies. Young people sent out to sell flowers and give all their money to the church.
The younger Mooney follows his late father's teaching with a couple of contemporary twists. In the book of Revelation, Jesus spoke of using a rod of iron to protect the true believers. Sean Moon's take involves worshipping with AR-15s and a strong devotion to all things MAGA.
These Christians believe they must build God's kingdom on earth, and to do that, they need guns.
The gun really does represent strength, peace through strength. You know, if you have a
semantics, peace through strength. Now, I get it, defending yourself, but look at the group think here, you know, and consider the fright and the fear that's at the base of this that's being manipulated.
Gun in self-defense, the criminal or the predator will back off.
In 2021, the group bought a 40-acre space in central Texas, not far from Waco, a safe haven for patriots and true believers in the coming war brought about by the machinations of the so-called deep state. The new site has a range of amenities, including a shop, cabins, and outdoor campsites. But that hasn't stopped them from setting up a GoFundMe page for further work.
We thank you that we would have the opportunity to be able to practice and love God and love our neighbor. From you, we receive our rights of kingship and sovereignty.
While the Latter-day Moonies fret about malign unseen forces perverting the American nation, another U.S. town offers a case study in how to attempt a stealthy takeover.
The real problem is that Moscow is dying.
Moscow is a small, superficially tranquil city in Idaho and home to the Christ Church Group, a 2,000-person strong, ultra-conservative congregation formed in the 90s.
Are you all starting to see the patterns? So again, as we explore the patterns, it's not exclusive. It's almost like taking many of us, many folks by surprise, the degree to which cults exist within the African American and the Afro community. But the pattern of the groupthink and the fright and fear and the mob-like mentality is global. It's global under churches, politicians. It's a pattern. It's a pattern.
Led by Douglas Wilson, a deeply controversial slavery apologist, the group have called for the establishment of a theocracy in the US. In late 2021, reports broke of the group's growing influence in Moscow, with downtown land purchases and aggressive attempts to influence local businesses and initiatives. Concerned residents spoke of how the church were looking to expand and attract new members to settle in the area. Perhaps unsurprising, given its stated goal is to make Moscow a Christian town.
If Christ Church is a racist, sexist cult, it must be combated.
Maybe establishing the kingdom of heaven on earth.
Let us continue with our exploration into the patterns that are going on with these cults. So I think what's interesting
right now, I'm getting in my Uber and I'm heading to a famous ashram here in Bangalore, India, the Nityananda Ashram. Nityananda is famous here in India for all.
So this is the first gentleman that we're exploring this. I remember seeing him, you know, he looks a little, saying something positive, you know, we usually go with the positive thinking, but it's something I thought was a little off in his facial expression, you know, but sometimes, you know, we just get bowled over when we like the outfit or the grand presentation, the gift of gab, whoever the singers are, and we let down our defenses and our discernment.
All kinds of things, for helping people open their third eye or making them levitate or
So this cat claims, or this guru claims, that he can get people to levitate, and if you follow him, you will literally have special powers. Now, he's attracted quite a bit of young adults and working adults that are out of college. He's attracted a lot of them over to India.
Having sex scandal.
And chopper folks too. He's got everybody. It's, equal opportunity.
And now, one of his most famous devotees on YouTube.
He was supposed to be celibate, but got busted in a sex tape with a popular Indian actress. I mean, go figure.
Came forward and made a video about how there's actually child abuse going on in the ashram, and she's now calling it a cult. So I'm gonna head there and explore around, see what's going on, see if it's a cult, see if some crazy enlightening things are happening. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Now, this is also the power of social media and people with the camera. They just decide to go on their own. Don't wait for the government or anybody. Just go check things out on their own and just turn on their camera and put it on YouTube.
Okay, dude, you ready?
I know words. I have the best words.
When your lawyer tells you not to start a war, you should listen. You need to do exactly as I say. Son F.
Hello, G. How are you? G, do you know anything about this?
Now, this young man is a travel blogger. He blogs as he's traveling throughout India and other places.
Ashram? Which one? This ashram I'm going to, Nityananda Ashram.
Nityananda Ashram, I know.
Huh, do you know about him?
I know.
Is it a good ashram?
Yeah, I know. I know ashram there.
Yeah, it's nice.
Huh, good.
Shanti hai.
Ah, Shanti.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You know Hindi?
Toda. Can you tell me about Nityananda?
Sorry?
Can you tell me about Nityananda? Do you know anything about him?
But I know Nityananda Swamiji.
Yeah.
But I don't know about him. He's a believe in Indian people.
Yeah.
No sex. No thief.
No
bad use words.
Yeah.
No own feelings. This is my property. Is so many cash. No. That person is a God, means believe.
Yeah.
Is a Swamiji.
Yeah.
Now Nityananda Swamiji is so many problems is facing.
Yeah.
His main problem is sex problems. So
Now, how is that always in the mix?
many girls is attached to him.
Yeah.
So many people is saying it's publicity.
Yeah.
That way is that person name is damaged in India.
Yeah.
English. English variation ಬಂದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಕ್ಕೆ ಅನ್ಮಾಟங்களா ಅವ್ರು பார்க்கிறதுக்கு முடியாதா அது ஆளு இல்லங்கடா
G. Mira dosai.
ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋಣ ಪಾರಂಗ
So I'm out here. This is the fence to enter in the ashram, and they have security here. And I guess Nityananda's not here now, and for some reason they won't let me in. I'm trying to tell them I got a friend inside. We'll see if it works. I tried telling the security guy at the gate that this was my friend.
Now, the guy that's on his phone is actually a popular ice hockey player that was in the ashram and married to some, beautiful vanilla girl in there. I don't know that they're still married at this point. You'll see him later.
To see if it would let me in.
Anybody is there, your friend in Nityananda Swamiji, but he give permissions. He's saying in security, they can inside on permission.
You have to have inside permission to visit.
Inside also permission. Then he is leaving.
Even if can he permission? Is there somewhere that we can ask, and maybe we can get permission to come in and view the ashram?
But
can he phone somebody that's inside and see and ask if we can visit? He's on the phone calling somebody.
How much time will it take inside?
We can take maybe. How long does he want? 30 minutes, 1 hour? We can be in and out.
He's not risk. He's not live inside. But you go inside, take one photo. Some
some photos.
Some money is give him.
How much you think?
I will ask him, arrange him.
Okay.
He's
Yeah,
giving
maybe
you,
tell him
he's giving
20.
you in the half an hour permission.
Yeah, 30 minutes is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Side போடுறேன். Side போடுறேன். Wait, I'm trying my best.
Money talks.
I wonder why they closed it for.
What is
Okay. एक minute. I don't understand what he's saying. I don't know if they're gonna let us in. Oh, I think they are. Are they letting us in?
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, I'll try my best.
They're very secretive.
No,
On the phone, he was asking me questions. Who do I know? Where do I come from? Oh, they opened the gate. I think this is good.
But so-called Nietzsche Nanda, he don't fled the country off of them charges.
This is where they recognize me and kill me. Oh man, it's weird here.
Okay.
If they're not a cult, this is well. So what did he say? What's our freedom here? What can we do here? We're not allowed to go in the ashram, right? We can just see.
No, actually nobody's allowed here.
No one's allowed here.
No one allowed. I will request him. I will have to give you some money.
Yeah.
Then you call to him inside. Anybody is take permission. He's called to here and take permission. Then he's not confirmed. Means so who is confirm you?
Yeah.
You're American, no?
Yeah.
That is let's try.
This is a big place. They've got his photos here. Oh, this is what they're giving us here. Just letting us in here in the gate.
Wait.
Hello, namaste ji.
Come, go inside and take and speak with him and come back. I am waiting for you. Okay?
Over the past 6 months.
So people wonder why no one speaks out. You cannot see everything from these screens, folks. You cannot. I guarantee you.
We have been investigating as well as exposing the truth behind all of these food processing plants that have been catching on fire.
Namaste ji. Hello. Hello. Who do I speak with?
Yeah.
You.
Nityanand.
Ji. Hello. How are you?
Coming from US. Huh? You can take the darshan of Kala Bhairava and go.
That's
actually inside the ashram, not allowed.
How come the ashram's closed?
Yeah.
How come?
Ashram is now closed for the visitors.
For visitors?
Inside.
When does it open?
Like since few months it is closed.
Yeah.
All the online programs are open.
The online programs are open, but no ashram. Yeah.
Physically cannot.
How come?
Because construction and all of that stuff.
Oh,
is going on
construction,
inside.
rebuilding.
So that's the reason actually not allowing. Swamiji is also physically not here.
Huh.
So most of the stuff is going on online.
Okay, I understand.
Online programs and Swamiji is even coming in online satsang. He's daily saying. Satsang.
Like webcam or something?
No, online satsang. Morning and evening. He's delivering satsang daily.
Yeah. Through a camera, no?
Yeah. Inside photography not allowed.
Okay. No
You
problem.
can just take the blessings of Kala Bhairava. He's a very powerful God.
There's Murti here.
Yes.
huh?
Very
Yeah, while you're there, you might as well take the blessings of the power of a powerful God while you're there, you know. There we go. Love on it.
powerful God. He's a God of completion.
Okay.
So he will remove any kind of stubborn issues from your life, like anywhere you got stuck, either spiritually.
अच्छा है जी आपका नाम क्या है
My name is Atma Priyananda, Sri Nitya Atma Priyananda.
Nice to meet you. What do you do here at the ashram?
I'm sannyasi.
Sannyasi.
You know Hindi?
Yeah, Tora.
You often come to...
Yeah, this is my third time in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is this? Color?
What is the color?
It's wooden, right?
That's wood, yeah. Bought it in Goa on the beach. Have you been to Goa?
No.
No, never. No.
I know about Goa, but I didn't.
Yeah. Okay, G, thank you for the introduction.
Thank you very much. That's what actually I want to call you King Kalabhairava because you came here.
Yeah.
Sending not alone. Just getting Kalabhairava darshan is the most powerful god.
I've never heard that name before.
Protector. Like you know Kali?
Kali, yeah.
If you want someone in the male body like that, it's Kalabhairava.
Oh, okay, so it's Kali in masculine form.
Yes,
Yeah.
kind of.
Kind of.
Bhairavi.
ठीक है.
See, Bhairava.
Hello, G. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. G, shoes nahi. Remove shoes. Namaste, G.
Remove the shoes there.
So we love like the outfit. I mean, it's beautiful. We're drawn to culture. Again, consider the things that are our favorite things that cause us to suspend our vetting process. Especially, don't let it be seeming having to do with our own culture or something. Our heart melts
ठीक.
along with our common sense and vetting.
G, where are the Western devotees staying now?
They are not here.
No?
Most of them are like in different adhinams.
Not in Bangalore.
Very few are. Very few. Most of them are like outside. In different adhinams in Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu. Okay, I understand. What is this Murti called again?
Kalabhairava.
Kalabhairava. Kalabhairava. Yeah?
You can Google Veerabhadra. These are the ferocious forms of Shiva.
Some people say Nityananda is incarnation of Shiva.
Yes.
Yes, this is what you think too?
It is a fact.
It's a fact, no? And how do you know?
Because whatever the knowledge he is showering, whatever the powers he is showering, are just representing.
Yeah.
And it is like.
Did you hear? What is the answer? How do you know he's God? Because of the powers he's representing, right? Having people levitate, read minds, children that are like almost reading your future. More about that in a minute.
Because the reason I came to the ashram, I see on like YouTube and these things of third eye awakenings and levitation and all this kind of stuff. This stuff happens here. Yeah, you've seen it happen.
It happened for me.
It happened for you. What happened?
For everyone, most of them.
Yeah. What happens?
So the levitation means you just first in the initial days, your Kundalini when it is reacting to the initiation of Guru.
Yeah.
Then your body shakes and you levitate. But when you become completely stable in the space of samadhi or a complete deep meditative state, nothingness, then you can even levitate consciousness completely like that.
And Swamiji does these things in front of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
He initiates.
He initiates.
He initiates. What does that mean? Now, I've been to ashrams and meditate. What does that mean? What does that mean? There's a lot of these buzzwords and catchwords and catchphrases. And sometimes we want so badly to be part of a club or part of the inn. You don't even realize. I know some of the parents of adult members of adult members of cults with their their adult children in cults. And when they're looking online, don't even realize that their children have on the clothes of an initiate. Well, they should be fully indoctrinated. Now I don't think they're not initiated anymore, but their children to walk around in the colors have been initiated. They don't even know. People don't even know what they're seeing.
People get that powers.
Yeah. Wow.
Out on bail in a sex scandal case, Nityanand had claimed that he could fight the law of gravity and make anyone levitate. A journalist challenged his claim, and there was no prizes for guessing who won.
If you're over 35, experience.
Okay, so now this guru is claiming that
Any of the following might not be what you think it is. Have you noticed your energy levels are declining?
challenging him on
Little
what happens.
He usually gets his followers into a dancing frenzy, but this time Swami Nityananda did something different. He got them to jump and jump repeatedly while sitting. This, he called, was his style of levitation. He claimed he could levitate anyone and invited a man from the media. The still photographer of a Kannada daily wore a headgear and waited for that jump.
No. I'll answer all the questions. And when he doesn't want to cooperate, I have no problem.
Nityananda is out on bail until the 31st of August.
So we're looking for something. Folks are looking for something, and you're going to get more than you bargained for.
Using this time to try and repair his damage.
And how I experience this? Yeah.
Register for the course.
But only online now, not in person.
It's going to happen in Trinidad and Tobago in December 1st.
December 1st. यहाँ पे?
No. December in Trinidad.
Oh, Trinidad.
Trinidad and here also.
In here.
Simultaneously.
And are those the the paid?
Swamiji will be initiated.
And they're paid?
Yes, they are paid.
Yeah. The prices of those?
Yeah, it's like now they pay like it's 13,000 USD, not then
13,000 USD.
Yes. If the days goes closer, then it's the final thing like 15,000 USD.
So the course, this short course is $15,000 US. So I was the only one that can. $15,000 US for his course.
If it's closed, then 15,000.
Yeah, that is per 30 days, of course.
Nice. Do many people come to these?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Like last December, like 1,000 people, something like that.
Wow.
They had 1,000 people take his course at 13,000, I believe it was.
Mostly Western people, or is it a lot of Indians?
Indian Westerns.
Yeah.
Like Indians who settled in different countries, different combinations.
Okay. I understand. Thank you, G. Thank you for allowing us to come back here. Thank you.
Bye.
G. I don't think so. They're trying to get a photo of me. That ain't happening today, gypsies. 15,000 US.
US.
Yeah, dollars.
Lots of money.
To join the ashram. Bahut paisa. To join the ashram.
Want to join here? 15,000?
15,000 US.
Oh, so expensive.
Very expensive.
You want to join here inside?
No, I don't want to join, but that's the price if you want to.
Oh, is it cheating?
Yeah, very cheating.
Then somebody else is cheating.
Yeah, of course. Of course he's cheating. No one's charging $15,000 if they're not cheating you.
$15,000 you have. Your life is enjoyed. Different.
Yeah, right.
Huh?
His life enjoyed with 15,000.
And the life is also ladies enjoyed.
I wonder why they wanted a picture. I figured since I was in Bang.
Wow. So, are you seeing any patterns?
Biggest devotee on social media. Her name's Sarah. I forget her Nityananda given name.
I know her name, American name is Sarah Landry, one of his biggest right-hand devotees.
But she came out and said that here at the ashram, there's a bunch of child abuse going on under the order of Nityananda. In some cases, they'll be starved, or in some cases, they'll be beaten. as a way to, admit that they have powers, admit that something is happening. And they do these Akashic readings, or they do third eye readings. And
just think of the amount of people. We get offended if somebody, another group says that we're gullible. And it's not exclusive to the chocolate community. But the amount of randomness people were looking to for direction and life readings, just any old body, were allowing to give us guidance, unqualified and unvetted.
it's very private, man. It was really hard for me to just even get behind this gate right here. I had to bribe the guy and go in there and speak with someone, and they talked to me on the phone and asked me questions about who I am, who I know, how do I find out about the ashram.
So, yeah, we're going to continue with our exploration of these here cults and see if we can identify any patterns.
Last Ramadan, we brought you the story of Niyaz and his disabled
And there are
sisters,
some distinct
a
patterns.
family of 5 living in poverty in rural
There's
Pakistan.
one ashram, a young lady,
Since
and I
then,
saw that young
one of
lady.
Niyaz's sisters
When
has
she
sadly
go online,
passed
I just
away.
looked kind of kooky. But I would have never guessed that she would come out of the cult.
Despite his grief, Niyaz continued to do his very best.
Namaste, and thank you for tuning in. I first and foremost want to apologize for the long lapse in time since my last video, and even more so for my long lapse of silence regarding the actual reason I left the cult of Nityananda last August. I'd like to give a little bit of background information as to what prompted me to leave that organization, why I now call it a cult, why I'm so sorry for all the years I...
Wow, she's gonna share some really, really good information. She's gonna share some definite patterns with these cults. Definitely. Let's see how many minutes are we in. Oh, we're gonna keep going.
spent promoting that place, thinking it was good, why I've come to the conclusion now that it's actually not. Basically, what these kids would do is sit on a throne, chant a mantra to connect themselves to that guru, and then proceed to express what most people think of as miraculous powers, reading through the third eye while blindfolded, scanning somebody's body for illnesses, looking into the distance and doing a remote viewing, or giving people answers to the most profound as well as the most personal questions in life by reading the Akashic records. One night while we were all there together, and I want to make it clear, I was a Gurukul Acharya at the time. I was one of the people who taught a class on a regular basis to the kids. That's why they had a personal relationship with me. The 2 children, a 13-year-old girl, a boy about that same age, they came downstairs to where I was staying and started to cry. Really, really, they had an emotional breakdown. And the little girl told me that the Akashic record readings she was doing was not real, that she wasn't seeing golden letters and reading people's cosmic answers to their questions. She was actually just making things up. And that the blindfold reading they were doing was also fake, and that they couldn't really body scan, they couldn't really do remote vision. And it was like what I thought was my purpose in life, what I had based so much of my own belief in, was shattering. Because for those of us who were members of that organization, as some of you might remember from my previous videos, the foundation of our belief was that these superpowers were called Shaktis, that they were spiritual powers awakened through the initiation by that guru, and that these kids were basically representatives of him. People made profound life choices based on the answers given to them by these children. And I mean choices like giving up their families to become monastic members of the order, giving all of their money as a donation to the organization, signing up for programs that cost tens of thousands of dollars because kids told them in Akashic reading that they had to. So when she told me that they were faking these powers, at first I found it hard to believe. I was experiencing something that cult psychologists,
cognitive dissonance,
refer to as cognitive dissonance.
You can see that all of their eyes.
All right, so let's just watch this. Let's watch how much, folks went in love with the theatrics, right? Don't question anything.
Are completely pasted now. So there's absolutely no possibility.
So say everybody wears locks. That's one of the attractive pieces there. One of the draws.
For any movement and any gap in the eye patches to happen. Now, Srinitya Dridananda, you can start.
It's just a standard drill that you see develop hand-eye coordination, but unfortunately, these guys don't have two eyes, so they're just going to use their third eye. So it's a hand third-eye coordination drill.
So now the stage is all yours. You can start and you can play with the power of third eye. You start playing. You to talk anything into the...
Feel Swamiji. Feel him in your Ananda.
So let's look at break this orchestration down. So you got to have the Vanilla brother representing from the States. Also, his credibility is he's a former athlete, ice hockey. He's given a little bit of body. All of this, whether we want to admit or not, is credibility. And by the way, these young people are faking being blind because they go run to this other woman that used to be one of the deep devotees and say that this is fake and we're getting beat.
Good. Good. That's it. That's it. Feel Swamiji. Connecting the Swamiji. Good. Good. That's it. That's it.
So the whole point is they're supposed to be doing this totally blind. Totally blind, they're supposed to be doing this.
Good passes. Make good passes. That's it. Very good. Very good. That's it. There you go. Feel the flow. Good. 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 That's
Who
it.
doesn't love, orange outfits, some regalia, some locks, then, they're vegetarian, vegan.
That's it. That's it. Good. This is next level training in the athletic world. You will not see this anywhere else in the world. You ready? Ready positions. Good. That's it. Good. A little bit quicker. Oh, so no matter what part of the world you're coming from, whatever country, it may be soccer. For me, it was ice hockey. In some parts of the world, it might be tennis. There's a lot of professional athletes and high performance athletes out there that would absolutely be blown away by this.
I've met some very interesting spiritual teachers and people I would consider to have a very serious path, like Ram Dass, for example. And
these are those Rambo.
Seeing any patterns with how these cults put forth their presentation? So in terms of using a beard or a cover that women and children are used as a cover. In this case, it was a gentleman that was playing
Hedron crystals in your pineal gland. When those crystals become electrically activated,
I would say that's definitely like a pattern.
yeah, I don't know. I feel a different type of energy when I watch the Nityananda videos or when I watch videos of his devotees. It just seems like fun spirituality. It seems like levitating and this kind of thing. It doesn't seem so much focused on mindfulness and these sort of Vedic principles of like Advait and the Vedantic sort of ideas that we think of when we think about Hinduism, that everything is oneness and that we should quiet the mind and become detached. Like these things sort of, this ashram's yoga seems to perpetuate or sort of stimulate the kind of harnessing of powers and stuff they say. And who knows if they're real, who knows? But for a cheap price of 15,000 United States dollars, you can come here and find out. When I watch these YouTube videos, though, I just feel like these are just a bunch of white kids playing dress up like a sadhu in India. You know, it's
Right out of his own mouth. Bunch of kids playing dress up.
fun. It's fun, but I don't know. I don't know if this is what the Buddha would be doing. Can you imagine if he really is the incarnation of Shiva, and I'm just out here? God, I'm going to hell.
I have been brainwashed by a dangerous cult.
This is the kind of thing that happens when you read books like Koi Fresco Vishuddhadasa's How to Meditate Like a Master in a Week or Less. This is the same kind of spirituality as that. You know, or taking one of his spiritual business
And that's how we get scammed.
courses. This is just a business. This is just a spiritual business. You must look at the actions that these self-proclaimed teachers are taking. These people are stepping up and proclaiming a role as being a teacher or someone worthy of sharing knowledge or of sharing healing. So we must look at the actions of these people, see what they're doing. It's easy to take some photos meditating or doing yoga or to chat shit with some spiritual catchphrases and say some things that sound good, but behind all of that, silence is the key. Silence is better than bullshit. The thing is that our Western minds are easily corrupted by things like this, by things that are flashy or packaged in a way that seems easily digestible or easily consumable. That's the way we were raised. We were raised by commercials and products. So it's natural that our operating system, we filter the world through that operating system. You know, that's how we view the world. They've somehow managed to make spirituality some kind of luxury, something that you have to pay for, some destination or some achievable thing. But you don't have to achieve anything to be spiritual. You don't have to spend any money. You don't have to do anything. By default, you are alive. You know, that's a spiritual thing. This is a spiritual experience, being alive. This is something mysteriously divine. Life is
For sure.
mysteriously divine, and no amount of money, you know, you don't need to spend any money to realize that. No amount of money and no amount of bullshit is going to lead you to God or lead you to yourself. You know, these are things that you have to discover in the silence of your own life. Despite what any of these people are telling you, they're selling you bullshit. This is bullshit spirituality. And I feel so bad for the people that are searching
So well, so succinctly.
desperately for something, that they fall for this kind of stuff. And the people that prey on them feeling some sort of emptiness and exploit that and for their own monetary profit and gain. It's some dark shit. That's the dark arts, baby. Look at this clip. So apparently someone said something bad about Nityananda. Look how his devotees reacted to it. They all got on YouTube, made a video, and they were giving abuses to the abusers. That's the word they like to use. Abuse. You're abusing their guru, so they're going to cuss at you in a language they don't even know what they're saying.
Nityanam Vanakkam, Srinitya Gita Shokananda.
Now this is ridiculous, but I want you to peep the group thing and what people will be willing to do when you speak up. But these cats are defending the guru.
York in the USA, where I'm a business person and an entrepreneur. I'm a proud white Hindu and a Shaivite initiated by Ramsin Nityananda. We want to make this video to express our outrage and disgust at some abuses that we saw on YouTube. Some dirty atheist, non-practicing Hindu dogs are abusing all of Hinduism.
You see a pattern here? Recently it was somebody else, I think it was a female, that was cussing folks out who she had whatever disagreement with. And she was cussing folks every which way to Sunday. So they're spiritual, right? And they're calling people dogs.
Right now, I'm getting in my Uber and I'm heading to a famous ashram. Looking at their phone to read it. This is what sheep do. They just
Pura Saparanaye, Sultanakara Sumiye, Kevidi Aki Puranga Purumbuke, Vila Kalakanachi, Yanila Kanachi, Abangala Papasala, Ota, Omala,
Basically, they're cussing folks out, you know. So the two Vanilla brothers on the side, on either side, they don't speak fluent Hindi, so it's being translated. So they're speaking out against people that spoke out about the so-and-so intimate violations to their body done by this particular guru. But I just want to see how even grown men will follow. After they cuss you out and call you a dog, basically like, you know, you're going to get jacked up, then they pray. All right.
You guys spent $15,000 to learn yoga, and this is the depth that you've gotten from this ashram? Jesus Christ. These guys don't even know what they're saying. They're looking at the phone to read it. This is what sheep do. They just say shit that they're told to say. But I'm going to talk badly about you to show you that talking badly is bad. Yoga. If he can enlighten people with a touch or make them levitate or give people third eye seeing abilities, this is the depth you've conquered within yourself, that you are resulting to this. Like, it just seems like if this was real, these guys would not concern themselves. Like, if I was around someone that was able to make people levitate, I would not give a shit what anyone had to say about it, because what do I have to prove? What do I have to prove in that circumstance? If there's a dude making people levitate around me, say whatever you want. I know the truth. I don't need to prove myself. Man, these guys are like sheep. These guys are like lost sheep, just trusting a butcher
Let's be clear, it's men and women that can be manipulated by cults and follow
directions. Nityananda, you heard the guy inside say that it's a fact that Nityananda is Shiva, is God in the flesh. And Nityananda even claims that he can make the sun rise late.
I told the sun, don't come out till I finish the Dvajarohana. And today, 40 minutes sunrise late. See the Biddi sunrise time today. See, there's a Google thing, there's a website where the sunrise time is supposed to be time and actual time is recorded. Today will be 40 minutes late. You want to see? It was actually only after I came out, finishing the Dvajarohana, sun was even seen in the east. Not because of cloud. Cloud means he will be seen higher.
Could you imagine God coming here as a human being and being such a dickhead that he charges people $15,000 just to meet him, or does he have some kind of spiritual wisdom? Anyways, I tried to get inside. They wouldn't let me inside. This is the best I could do.
Nityananda.
Ram Ramji.
Nityananda.
Nityananda.
Bye.
See you.
Okay.
All right, let's get the hell out of here before these guys kill us. I'm doing the math because I'm curious to see how much money Nityananda is making from one of his courses. That Sadhu gentleman said that they charged $13,000 US and 1,000 people came. It's $13 million for one course. I don't know how it works here in India, but in America, religions are tax-free. $13
million, one course. That's just one course.
million for one course. Why would an incarnation of Shiva need $13 million? I don't have any answers. I guess he wouldn't, because he's Shiva. And money is not even real. He's the creator of the universe. So I'm back at my guest house now. It wasn't a complete failure, but it was mostly a failure. What's my goal of this video? My goal is not to shit on Nityananda or any of his devotees, but I think when you have such big accusations of child abuse or sex abuse, and you're a spiritual teacher, I don't think it's wrong to question these things or to have a conversation about it or to address it.
And people are too scared to question anything. So, that was an exploration into what's going on with these cults. It's just one example of many. And again, one of the ways they pull people, all these different cults have different ways. Some of them very simple, that they pull people on insecurities. Men have all people have insecurities about their bodies, perhaps something they're ashamed of, or if issues with a parent, maybe perhaps that was abusive or not present. And these folks know how to scan you for insecurities. Old, young, everybody has insecurities and fears. And you are audited as you are sharing, thinking these people are such great listeners. They're busy holding on to your information so that you can be gaslit and, feel like you have a comrade. One of the ways they go after men is, if you're having issues in your relationship, they become the cult leader becomes your listening ear so you can go cry to for your relationship, and then even dangle before you the idea that you might have another mate if you, get everything right and eat the living foods and you make the bank runs in the States and, just doing work and show that you're a devotee. One day you'll be one of the sacred few. So I'm inviting you to keep your thinking caps on and to use discernment. When we hold on to our favorites, we have our favorite person, a favorite locks, favorite red, gold, and green, favorite food. They come at you a lot of times with your favorites, because sometimes when you have a favorite, we can have a tendency to become biased, and our vetting process and our discernment goes down. Nah, this is an elephant. Nah, they eat living foods and vegetables. Nah, they're righteous. Nah, they gotta be. You don't even know who you're speaking to in their legal name. Inviting you to keep your thinking caps on and to cultivate discernment. Be well.